Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final instantiation of the Jewish Book Club reading The Great Partnership, Science, Religion, and the Search for Meaning by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. We read the final chapter, which was chapter 14, Why God, and the epilogue, Letter to a Scientific Atheist. It seems like just Emma is hardcore, always shows up on time. Ben said that he would only be able to show up for the later half, and Sandy said she was
about half an hour late, probably.
about half an hour out, and Trey said he would be here, and he's not. But we do have poor Jonathan. He just never learned how to read, so it's really difficult for him to slowly get through this book. But we appreciate it.
Imagine being Jared, 19.
Well, I do have a lot of updates for the book club, but because the book club includes Emma, here's Trey. Wow, look at that.
3 minutes late. I'm 1 minute late. What are you talking about? Wow, speaking bad of my name.
That's still late.
Hey, I'm in ginger time, okay?
Ginger time? I thought gingers
Is that
didn't
like
have any
Greek time?
relation to time.
They don't have, because they don't have souls. Fine, I'm on JW time.
I didn't say that. You said that, Trey. Real mask-off moment right there. All right. Well, I guess we can start, and then when Ben gets here, I'll do some more of the housekeeping, because Sandy should be here also by then. All right, because Sandy isn't here, who I usually bug for something first, let's go with Trey today.
That's a great idea. Because last time you picked on me, so...
Exactly. You can't always pick on Emma when Sandy's not here. And finally, We're not just like Trey's podcast while he drives, so it's going to be an interesting experience.
I'm just busy, bro. I just got things.
You're just a businessman.
I am. How you been, clown?
Good. Better than you, I assume, considering you almost got Noah in the desert. So.
Noah? Yeah,
Noah.
That's honestly true. Oh my gosh! Why would he post that?
So you're not going to share something from the book? That's what's happening?
No, I will. How bad? It'll be fine.
I will say, Emma, I just tuned in briefly to the Sunday stream, and seeing Father Eric outside of his priestly garbs was very, very awful.
I was watching it a little bit because whenever I miss it, I like to go back and click through it to see what people were talking about, and it is a weird experience.
Yeah. I don't think that priests should be allowed to own non-priestly garbs. I don't think it's right.
Well, I do know that it's very rare for Father Eric. I'm honestly surprised he didn't drag a collar out just for the stream.
Yeah, we don't. It's as long as it's business up top, that's all we see. So that's all that matters.
But yeah, a T-shirt with words on it. Not allowed.
Nope.
All right, Trey, what you got for us?
So I gotta say, this is my favorite chapter in the book. I'm not even lying. He's starting out with a Carl Jung quote, which is like top tier. I think that I do think that Rabbi Sacks is doing a bit of doublespeak, a little bit, because it seems in this chapter he's bringing out all the arguments they said weren't important, and then saying, "Hey, they're important again." But he's reintroducing them and saying they're important for different reasons, like they're indications, pretty much. And I think that this is sort of the like for example, the reason I've always ratted on Noahides is sort of in this chapter as well, because he basically says the points that I think are the most true, where he mentions basically on page 278 from the argument from happiness, and says, oh wait, or nope, I messed up. Oh, sorry, page 277, on the argument from entropy. An extensive study carried out throughout the United States between 2004 and 2006 shows that frequent church or synagogue goers are more likely to give money to charity regardless of whether the charity is religious or secular. They are also more likely to do voluntary work for a charity, blah, 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 blah. I think his interesting point where he says, so he basically says that religion has a bunch of influence. And then on page 278, he makes another interesting topic about Putnam, the person who's sourcing the effects of religion, where he says, Putnam goes so far as to speculate that an atheist who went too regularly to church, perhaps because of his spouse, will be more likely to volunteer in a soup kitchen than a believer who prays alone. And I think that is one of the greatest motivators, and I think that's what he should be leading into more, is that you don't need to agree with 90% of it, but it reverberates on different levels of your psychology. So I really enjoyed that point.
Yeah, I liked that point too. It feels a little bit not like unrelated to the rest of the book. That's not the right word. I don't know. He suddenly this whole chapter is very interesting because it's just a very pragmatic argument and sort of doubling down on that, which has showed up throughout. And I don't know if I was expecting it. I probably should have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure. One of the issues I kind of have with this chapter, it's an issue I have with Peterson in some extent. It seems like they're saying like, well, because, as Trey would say, it produces good ends, like we should then believe in it, but something true can produce, bad outcomes. And also it kind of presupposes that that the reader would find these things that Rabbi Sachs brings up as valuable. So I already have to buy in to the idea that these things are valuable, and then I'll say, oh, religion is valuable.
I disagree that he's trying to sort of, like, I would agree with that if we didn't find the last chapter a letter to a scientific atheist, which I'm sort of backing. But again, the Jewish position is not to evangelize. So the whole point is a defense rather than an offense. So he's really just saying, like, leave these people at church because they do good. But I don't think that's his mission, I guess.
Maybe, but you can then just imagine that, like, you're a Jew and you are, on the edge. Like, should I be an atheist? Should I not? Right? In that case, I think my argument would apply if I just assume that the audience is Jewish instead of Christian or secular.
What is your point again? I'm a little confused.
So I have to presuppose that these values are true or good, that they're worth pursuing, and therefore I should engage in religion, right? As you make that Putnam quote, right? That there's utility in the religion, but it doesn't mean that I have to then believe it's true, right?
Yeah, but as someone who wavers in those waters, I don't. I asked another question of like, what does it mean that you believe it's true? And I don't mean in a Peterson effect. I mean to say as like, if you're doing the things right, and you sort of start saying the vocabulary, I think it becomes true to you in a sense. Like I mean, like for example, I'll say this: if you ask Jehovah's Witness, do you think it's the truth? They'll say yes. But if you ask them, hey, do you think in 1938 is when the anointed class stopped and Gentiles were let in? They'd be like, no, but that is witness terminology. Does that make sense? Like, I think that when we say believing it's true, you're packaging a lot in there that I think the average person doesn't need to think about. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that they may believe in it like holistically, but on individual points, it may be a bit different.
Yeah. And I think that I think a lot of people want to say that's a barrier for people. Like, I'm not going to let a Peterson person in, or I'm not going to count a Peterson Christian. But I think personally, from what we're reading right now, a person who fully believes everything but never goes to church is not as good as someone who is sort of a Peterson believer and goes to church.
Are you going to say something, Emma?
I don't think so. I think that is a good point, Trey, especially with the Peterson like act as if it's true. I think in a lot of ways that's sort of the argument this whole book makes, is the same sort of like, you can't prove if it's true or not, but if you act as if it's true, things go better. So might as well.
Yeah, and
And I've been sort of moving closer to that viewpoint from a super strict, like, you have to believe everything. Of course, as a Catholic, it's a little different because belief comes from obedience in a lot of ways.
yeah,
So it's a
and
different view of it.
And I feel like there's a lot of the terms of enchantment, and I think that's more realistic of what is a good religious outlook. Like, to me, as much as I love the philosophy doesn't really help when I'm having like a really bad day, and I'm like, I really don't want to go to church, like I don't want to do it. But when I'm like, well, I have this person who's there, and I know I'll have a good day going, and then I go and I have a good day, that's more of a motivator to me than hearing some kalam, hearing some big argument about the resurrection, right? And I think more people are moved that way. And like, of course, we should present ourselves as intellectual, but day to day, like, the emotions are going to continue us in that door.
Yeah. The intellectual argument is not what keeps most people going day after day after day. It's almost an argument for charismaticism. Not necessarily, but it could be.
Clown, you look like you have something to say.
People are different, so these kind of emotional arguments are interesting, and I do put some weight to them, but they're not very satisfactory to me, which is why, Peterson's interesting, but I didn't find him, I don't find him particularly convincing in this regard. So
I think, okay. Question. And I feel like this gets to the issue. When we talk about like the passages ordering the destruction of the Amalekites, or the idea of the flood of the world, or for example, Abraham and Isaac, do you look at those passages and have any questions with them?
of course,
Why?
because you would like to understand them. What are they trying to say? Are
But
they real? Are they not real? Are they allegory? Are they not allegory?
But I think what that also is pointing to is an emotional stance. Because if you're only philosophical, you could say, yeah, God could order like the Amalekites, and because I believe these philosophical premises, this is no problem for me. But I don't think that's how you work, clown.
Well, you don't know the machinations of my mind, but I mean, I think that that's different. Like that's analysis of text, and whatever presuppositions I bring into it will affect it. I don't know, like, how do you explain fundamentalists who can't accept that the world is like older than 6,000 years? Right. Well, Catholics, I never heard any Catholics say that the world was 6,000 years. I know that there are some, but growing up, I never heard it.
Yeah, they're not that common.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know the reason when I used to have a similar view, pretty much. Okay, I'll tell a story. So when I was sort of working for my faith as a witness and everything like that, I would always talk to my pastor, and he would basically say, this other church doesn't have the same beliefs. Look in the Bible here, they don't have the same beliefs. And sort of you trying to use these logical understanding, right? And I wasn't able to make it work. And I was seeing all this stuff. And he says, okay, wait until convention. And convention is where all the little churches sort of get together. And then he comes up to me and he says, look around. And he makes the emotional appeal. And I'm seeing all these witnesses talk to each other from different race lines, from different ideas, and everything like that. And I think he knew that that would have a bigger effect on me. And I think it's a mix of those two things that make you believe the 7,000 years. You either believe that nothing else is better, or you believe the logical arguments. But I think they're unwrapped together.
Oh yeah, I get why people think that. It's just not actually that common in most Catholic circles.
Yes, well, emotion and logic do seem to play a role in whether we accept or reject arguments. But I'm just saying that, like, pragmatism is not going to move me, right? Like, pragmatically, we all know how to be healthy, right? But if you look around the world, most people aren't super healthy. So, like, I don't know. It's difficult for me to think, okay, so I think that maybe this has pragmatic value. I just don't know why I would necessarily do it.
I think it also is genuinely worth having different arguments out there, though, because I think different people will respond to different things. And some people do react to the pragmatic.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. I'm done.
I don't think it's about the pragmatism. I think it's about association and psychology. I think that's why you opened it up with Jung. It's not that, like, for example, if everyone around you is skinny, I 100% believe that you're going to try and lose weight. Because like psychologically, you're going to see the differences between you. And you're going to say, well, everyone around me is skinny and I'm not. And I think that's what he's trying to say, is that, like, I think that there was a study that basically said that different psychological profiles will approach the Kalam cosmological argument differently depending on how they feel of, like, Christianity as a whole.
Yes. I mean, beliefs that you hold are harder to change than beliefs that you don't hold, right? The amount of evidence that you require to change views, depending on, like, how taxing it is,
Right.
will change. So it doesn't seem that surprising.
I can never remember which one is the Kalam anyway. I know it's not important. It's just being used as an example here, but I just always forget.
It's the one about the existence of the world.
Anything that begins to exist must have a cause.
Okay.
The world began to exist, therefore the world had a cause, or the universe.
So is it not actually different from the unmoved mover?
Yes, because there are two different types of causation chains. I don't know the fancy Latin term, but one is like A begets B, B begets C, C begets D, right? So that's kind of the universe type argument. And the other is like A is dependent upon B, B is dependent upon C, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's more like the unmoved mover one.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Think Ed Phaser, that's his last name, right?
That sounds
He's
right.
the one that I learned that from. So, all right. Do we want to move from this subject to something else? Emma, do you have something now? We
Probably.
entertain Trey.
This isn't necessarily like it doesn't necessarily have a lot of like scope for discussion, but I'm fascinated by the fact that the advertisement he uses as the like example is there's probably no God. Like, and maybe it's because he's used this, or maybe there's a connection between why he's used this advertisement as an example so many times and why his argument sort of seems to mirror it in that it's more like there probably is a God than like there is a God.
If I remember correctly,
It's very
that
different
advertisement.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You were speaking.
It's just a very different mode of argument.
Yeah. Well, I think that it was a very like jarring advertisement. It was kind of at the height of, I guess it was what, 2011? Is that when they said it was?
I think so, something like that. The height of new atheism.
Yeah, it was like kind of 2009 to 2012. And so it was a big controversy in the UK, and I think in general in the kind of new atheist religious dialogue. So it would be something that like all the readers at the time of publication would know about.
Yeah, because this book is from what, like 2012-ish?
Yeah. Oh man, when they don't have a portion of this work originally appeared on thedaily.com, May 27th, 2012. It was published in 2012. I thought the section Argument from Happiness was interesting because in the previous book we had read, which was The Halakhic Man by Rabbi Soloveitchik, in note 4, and this is a Jacob common occurrence, but he doesn't seem to think that like religion is, let's say, a vehicle for happiness. This is just a quote. Religion is not, at the outset, a refuge of grace and mercy for the despondent and desperate, an enchanted stream for the crushed spirits by a raging, clamorous torrent of man's consciousness with its crisis, pangs, and torments. Yes, it's true that during the third Sabbath meal at dusk, as the day of rest declines and man's soul yearns for its creator and is afraid to depart from that realm of holiness whose name is Sabbath into the dark and frightening secular workday week, we sing the psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters," etc., etc. And we believe with our entire hearts in the words of the psalmists. However, this psalm only describes the ultimate destination of the religious man, not the path leading to that destination. Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that Rabbi Sachs kind of offers this happiness critique, and in this note, Rabbi Soloveitchik really does criticize, I would say, the kind of basis of this assumption, and says, at least I don't find spirituality and religion to be that doesn't really invoke
They don't
happiness,
make you
really
happy.
struggle.
Doesn't he? I've been slowly moving through man, right? But doesn't he say that the true man, Halak man, I'm saying it wrong, looks at the world in a different way?
The third way.
I think so. Doesn't he say that there's the normal person who sort of looks at the world as moving chemicals, second person who God comes inward, and then the Halakhic man who sort of looks at the world inward, outward?
Yeah, as a combination of the two.
Yes. I think that the author of that book, I can't pronounce his name, is trying to say what Rabbi Sachs is trying to say. Happiness was a really bad title for that chapter. It was more or less meaning. Because he doesn't really say, you're always going to have food and it's not going to be difficult. I don't think he says that. He says that it's going to be meaningful, at the very least.
The most significant determinants of happiness are strong and rewarding personal relationships, a sense of belonging to a community, being valued by others, and living a meaningful life.
Yes, but he's using Maslow to make that point. And at the top of Maslow's hierarchy is meaningful terms. Happiness terms are on the bottom. So I do agree he's using happiness, but I think what he's actually saying is meaning. If he was saying happiness, he would say that churches would always give you full health, full stomach, and everything.
I don't think
because
that's
fundamentally his argument is that he goes into a whole thing about how material well-being is only minimally related to happiness, and once you get past the bare minimum, satisfying the needs of the body, then you get to the actually important aspects of happiness, basically, seems to be his argument. So I think when you dig down into it, he is really talking about meaning, but if you put meaning as the chapter title or the section title, then he has to argue why that's important, and he was trying to bypass that.
I'm not so sure, because he mentions food as in a basic prerequisite for these things, but it seems like he's saying meaning is an aspect of happiness, right? That meaning in some ways leads to happiness. At least that's how I interpret what he's saying.
I also think he means meaning because he had a whole chapter on meaning, not on happiness.
Wouldn't that actually follow that it's probably about happiness? Because why would he double 2 chapters for meaning?
Well, it's because it's the conclusion.
I mean, people double up their chapters all the time and come back to things they've already talked about.
If someone practices religion, so this is 280, the last paragraph, prayer and all this other stuff, create structures of meaning and relationship within which our individuality can flourish, this is where, for many of us, happiness is to be found. So again, I don't think that we can conflate his usage of happiness and meaning. I think he is talking about meaning, but I don't think he's using happiness as a synonym for meaning.
Okay.
I don't think it's a full synonym, but I think he will fully admit that religion won't like fix poverty by itself.
Yes.
So he's just sort of setting that to the side.
I want to read the last paragraph of 280 again. It
Okay.
makes a difference to happiness to know that we are at home in the universe. That isn't I feel good, that is a meaning expression. That we are here because someone wanted us to be, and that something of us will live on. The practice of religion, prayer as an expression of gratitude, ritual as enactment of meaning, sacred narrative as a way of understanding the world and our place with it, rites of passage that locate their journey as a shared experience, connecting us to the paths. Those are, I feel he's using more meaning terms than happiness terms in that last paragraph.
Yes, I'm not saying that meaning is totally separate from happiness in that like having meaning can lead to happiness, but I just don't think that they're exactly the same, or that it can be counted as about meaning, the argument for meaning.
Okay. I guess we could agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, I don't even know the extent to which we are disagreeing, honestly. So
Yeah. It's like
I
saying
feel
like,
like
oh
it's
man,
not that significant a difference.
But Clown, I do have another question for you. How did you feel about him bringing all these philosophical arguments at the end?
let's see, where did I wrote something about that
I knew you did.
in here. Oh, this was in cosmology. That's where I first wrote it down. He says, the the rule of logic known as Occam's razor, do not multiply unnecessary entities, would seem to favor a single unprovable God over an infinity of unprovable universes. And I was like, oh, so now you like logic. I see how it is. Is it because William Ockham is English and not Greek? Is that why? But I just thought it was so funny. Like he was like trashing all these arguments, and then he's like, "Oh, like there doesn't need to be any arguments." And then he's like, "Anyway, so let me give you some arguments." But that seemed to be his whole entire like shtick throughout the entire book. He's like, "Everything arguments," and then he's like, "I'm just going to give you an argument."
Yeah, I think that he was just trying honestly to be a bit deceptive to allow atheists sort of in. That's how I understood it.
Wow.
Allow atheists to what?
Oh, to allow them to keep on reading.
Oh,
The carrot and the stick approach.
just gradually pulling them along. It did sort of feel like that. Not gonna lie.
I mean, the new atheists weren't too smart, so I can understand why someone might do this, but like, I don't know, I feel like if you're a little
It's
bit
still
intelligent,
insulting.
it's like, what the heck, bro? I don't like this, and I'm not a new atheist, so I don't know.
Even if they're not that intelligent, it's still insulting.
Yeah, of course. Break people just because they're a little empty-headed. It's not right.
He like wrote a whole book based on like I'm not gonna give any arguments for God, be like logical philosophical arguments for God, because we've been playing this game for thousands of years and not gotten that far. And then the last chapter is just like, so here's all those arguments for God.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, like, it reminds me of Christopher Hitchens, who was like kind of a pure rhetorician. He just made like emotional arguments, and it seems like that's mainly what Rabbi Sachs relies upon. Also, are emotional arguments.
Is it a Brit thing?
Hmm.
Sort of.
Right?
I do want to.
Hitchens was a Brit. I'm remembering that correctly, yes?
Yes.
The accent can cover for a multitude of sins.
I do want to defend Sachs a little bit. Technically, he says these arguments don't work as arguments, and what he's trying to put forward is probabilities, which is two different things. But I will admit, it's a bit sneaky.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, I did want to say in the arguments from life section, at the end, on page 271, let's see. He says, "What makes us different is that we are meaning-seeking, culture-creating animals." And I just watched a video about killer whales having culture. So I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Ooh.
What do you mean by culture?
Yeah, what do they mean by culture? When they
It
talk
seems
about
like there are things in like killer whale. I don't know what they call them. They didn't know what they called them in the video. Pods that there are. Yeah. For example, there was there were like trends in killer whales they saw. Like they would see in the Puget Sound, which is by Seattle. Killer whales that they would just like carry around dead salmon in their mouths for no apparent reason.
I've heard of this. Oh my
And then
gosh, I just
they
remembered.
also were seeing like off the coast of South Africa, killer whales will do this thing where they'll flip great white sharks on their backs, and this causes them to be immobilized due to a quirk of, I guess, shark physiology.
biology.
And then they will just eat the liver. So like they have like a taste preference, like, oh my gosh, shark liver, so big right now. Kind of like, like a cronut or something like that.
That's horrifying. Also, poor shark.
Yeah, and they just find them washed up against the beaches with just like their livers gone.
Yeah. I've been having a lot of conversations with vegans, so I'm going to go against that point. I think when he means meaning-seeking animal, I think that he means it's an integral thing. So I'd like to be interested to see if these Rabbi said these whales, if they like, if they could live or survive if they didn't have these things. Like, I think humans innately need culture to survive. Um, and I don't know if animals do.
Did you ever see that I don't know what it's called, like the baby monkey study with feeding monkeys?
Is this the wire mother, cloth mother?
I think so.
Or a different one?
It's the one where they'll have one monkey, like fake mother that has food, and then the one that provides like comfort.
Yeah.
And that the monkey will only consume enough food to like survive, and then they'll immediately go to the mother that provides like comfort.
Yeah, the cloth mother is the one with comfort. And the wire mother is like cold and harsh, but has the food.
And so it seems to me that that culture does play a role, at least in to some extent, with animals.
I guess you're right. I'll give a part of that.
Another theist destroyed by science.
I do think that there's an anthropological quote saying that if a cult, like, how do you pull it up? If a tribe loses their meaning, they just give up pretty much and just stop moving.
I can understand that. I believe you. I don't think you need to search for a quote.
And I think, like, because I feel like making distinctions between humans is always really hard, because you'll find one animal that has this one trait, but I think what we mean is the maximum of these traits.
I mean, in general, it seems that even scientists struggle with classifying animals into different species and all these things. So it's not easy. That's for
Mhm.
sure. I will say, I do like the argument from history. I think that's an interesting argument.
It is
The one
interesting. It
about
seems extremely Jewish.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's better than the argument from prophecy, because those are always harder to prove. Um, okay. I don't have any other points on this chapter. If you want to move on to Letter to a Scientific Atheist.
Hmm. I feel
Hmm.
bad. No Sandy, no Ben yet. Maybe they would have opinions on these things. Feels
We
like
can always
long.
come back. We can just
I
circle
guess
back a
that's
bit when
true.
they get here.
Loki, I do want to finish because I really hate the Letter to a Scientific Atheist
All
as the whole
right.
chapter.
Well, let's let Trey be the trendsetter in this epilogue then.
It's just like, okay, I get it. You're a Jew. You shouldn't evangelize. I fully understand. But it's like, put it in the farthest back of the book because it's literally like so squeamish. I don't know how to say. Like, I think Rabbi Sachs has these great and powerful moments where he like stands up and his back is straight, and he also has these other moments where his his spine sort of curls. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel bad for saying that, but it's true. Like the evil chapters, and I feel like in the epilogue to a letter to scientific atheists, he just sort of just been like, yeah, if you believe it's all hogwash, you're verified in that belief. I just wanted to make a defense for my team. I don't have. Don't worry about you. Don't think about it too much.
Your beliefs are valid.
Oh my God, you're so valid.
You're so valid.
I mean, that's just. I mean, he's just a nice little liberal boy. All right. I don't see anything wrong with this Trey.
But okay, you can't use the Putnam quote and say if the if an atheist and a wife, okay, if a Christian wife and an atheist husband are both going to church, and because he's dragged to church, he will become a better person. You can't have that knowledge and then say, I'm not going to try at least you trying church. Because that means that you know that somebody could do better in life and be a better person and not incentivizing them to at least try.
What do you think he ought to have said to incentivize the atheist to do that?
I think just say, like, the previous chapter is why not God, right? And I feel like you should have just ended it that way. Like, you're valid in your beliefs, but why not God? Like, there's this Catholic YouTube channel that I watch called Little Beggar, and he makes all these points. And at the very end, it's just an opening of a door, the animation, and just says, "Why not God?" And I feel like that's what he should have done. Like you can bow a little bit, but still say, "I think you should try."
The little beggar.
It's honestly one of my
Yeah, I'm
favorite,
curious about this too.
uh, or something like that. Let me find it. Or I'm beggar, uh, Catholic. Oh yeah, I'm beggar.
Okay.
I'm bigger.
Yes, uh, you would really like it. I think it's
Oh, I
honestly,
am bigger. Okay.
I am beggar. Yeah.
Oh, it's one of these animation channels. Okay.
Honestly, If I wanted to explain
Interesting.
Christianity, I'd send that.
Interesting. I'll add that to the list.
Yeah. it
Usually
is
the only
interesting.
Catholic I watch is Trent Horn.
Trent Horn is good.
Yeah, until he says something really dumb. And then it's like, wow, Trent, really?
I mean, not ever. I don't think anyone can be right 100% of the time, or completely avoid saying really dumb things.
That's also true. But usually we just keep those to ourselves. All right.
Yeah.
We have Archangel's Media, and he says, I don't think that ends justify means. Honestly, should be a comma, not a semicolon. If God doesn't exist, then who cares if my existence is marginally better, marginally happier according to some census poll?
Wow, correcting people's punctuation as you read their comment.
It's what
Savage.
Jacob does to the comments, so I'm just following Jacob's tradition.
Savage.
Okay.
I haven't heard him do that.
Oh my goodness.
Come on, Trey, you can respond.
This comment frustrates me a bit because you are in that position. You care, okay? Like, after you pass through the nihilism, like, you eventually are going to come to some decision where it's like, yeah, I want to be better. And that's when you care.
What if there is no end to
The nihilism. What if
the
that just
nihilism?
doesn't happen to you?
You got to talk to some more atheists. That's all I'm saying. Like,
I'm from the West Coast, Trey, so I don't. I've talked to plenty of atheists. What was I missing this whole time?
I feel like there's also something on the Christian side, and I'm going to try to make that. Jacob talks about this guy who's been living a lot of his life with a hernia. I think he's talked about it. I think so. There's this guy that Jacob knows that has a hernia, and he's had a hernia for about 10 years, right? And he doesn't get it fixed and go to the doctor because he believes God is going to fix it. And so he lives with this pain every single day because of it, right? And if I was in that position, even if I believe God would fix it, I'd still go to the doctor. Because there's something about me that doesn't want to suffer. And that's going to move past these words of I could just suffer. And I think there is a small selection that will hear those words and think suicide is on the table. But for the majority of people, I think they'll say, no, I want to move past that into something that is better.
See, this is how I know you're a true DGGer, because this is like a classic Destiny style argument where he's like, there are people that do this other thing, dude. But I guess the problem I have with that style of argument is that I just don't know how what other people do affects the truth or the falsity of anything.
What other people do affects. Say that again.
So, like, if 100 people
Yes.
say that the best thing you can do is drink turpentine, it doesn't mean that drinking turpentine is a good idea.
There are things that aren't determined by majority.
So you give me an appeal
Or
to
agreement.
democracy that, like, yeah.
Oh, okay. I get it. I think that in the comment it seemed that, like, because I'm saying I'm basically calling BS on that comment. I'm saying that at the end of the day, you would like to eliminate that suffering if you truly believe that. If you truly believe God didn't exist, you'd be like, I want to eliminate that suffering.
Yes. But why?
You could say it's some innate biological drive. You can say it's something else. Like, okay, I'll read the comment. Yeah, but I'm going to say if God doesn't exist, then there is no meaning, there is no objective morality. Then why not self-delete? I mean, hedonism makes more sense than nihilism. But you said it right there. Hedonism doesn't make more sense than nihilism on your view because you're saying I should pursue pleasure over something. The reason you're pursuing pleasure is because it feels good, and nihilism doesn't feel good. Kind of lost my train of thought, but I guess what I'm saying is you say those words, but I don't think you're going to act with those words because most people who try to self-delete don't go on their first failed attempt. They never attempt again, as well as most people don't self-delete because of other people around them. So for the most part, you're locked into the game and you don't have a choice. You have to try your best to make it better. Yeah, that's my point. Is I think that most people, it's talk, and I think more people realize that they're locked into the game, and they're going to find a worldview that at least makes them believe that life is better.
Yes, but I think that the point we were trying to make is that it doesn't matter what most people do, right? Something is true or false independent of what most people think, right?
And even if most people would act in a way that is not logically consistent with what they believe, which is what I've found when talking to atheists, secularists, like the way they
Christians,
behave
Jews,
and
Muslims.
a lot of people, yeah, everyone has it to some degree. But sort of relevant to this conversation, I've noticed it with like secularists, where like they act they act normal, and not like they believe that nothing has any meaning because it is more natural to act like the world has meaning. But if you ask them, they'd probably say, no, there's no meaning.
Yeah, but that also goes to another point. If God doesn't exist, why do I have to care about logic? I like freeloaders who are like have wild dreams are able to live illogically. Like there is no logic police coming down your lane. Are your philosophical, implications attacked? No, and I think that the same thing sort of applies.
Well, a type of nihilist can just say that logic seems to be um, a way for us to communicate effectively. Therefore, I use logic because it's effective. And I might use emotional appeals in other places when that's more effective. Well, that's just a pragmatic answer. I mean, come on, doesn't Putnam say if you just use pragmatic language, you can get what you want?
Oh man, this, okay, this is gonna sound like I'm talking down to you, and I don't mean that. I see myself a lot in you, clown. I'm not gonna lie. I literally, like, that's exactly how I acted. I was sort of this analytical behavior, and I guess what I'm trying to say is when the analyticalness breaks, I think that's when you understand the pragmatism of Sachs' argument as well as what I'm trying to say. And I think that there's a point where the analyticalness breaks. That's
That's
all.
okay. I understand what you're trying to say. I'm just being a bully,
A clown?
a clown.
Oh,
All right. Jonathan chimes in. Even though he hasn't finished reading the book, hedonism is a form of nihilism. Does the author deal with Ecclesiastes much? Yes, Kohelet is the Hebrew name. I don't know if he's mentioned Ecclesiastes. I think maybe once.
He did like once in one of the chapters. I don't remember which one though. I just remember we like talked about it. It was several weeks ago.
Yes. Jonathan says he can test out of this book. Unfortunately, if you don't read the next book, Jonathan, you won't be a Noahide anymore. I'm sorry, but the rabbis have
Oh, is this
discussed and said,
Noahide Book Club?
no, this is for Jonathan. This is the Jewish book
Okay.
club, but Jonathan, of course, is obligated as a Noahide to read the books in the Jewish book club. So
Ah, I see.
the rest of us are free to do whatever we want.
As long as engaging in the Jewish book club does not make you a Noahide.
Oh no, of course not. Of course not.
God, I would hate myself if it did.
Troy's like, I might just end it if I were a Noahide. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
He's talking about Ecclesiastes is very nihilistic, right up to the end. Fear God and keep His commandments.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That's what he should have ended the book with. The quote from Ecclesiastes.
I do kind of agree it would have been stronger than this letter to a scientific atheist. Just rhetorically.
Do you have anything that you want to point out in the letter, Emma?
I don't think so. Overall, I just found it very like meh. Admittedly, I read it like super quickly though because I had other stuff going on today. Surprisingly, my life does not revolve solely around Jewish.
Damn. That's crazy.
I know.
What about you, Trey? Anything else about this milquetoast book that you
One final comment. In the Myth of Sisyphus, at the very least, Camus talks about the idea that there's nothing you can say to a suicidal man to convince him out of it. Like, he's going to throw everything against you, even if he is a believer, and everything like that. And I think what Camus tries to do is also what Sachs is trying to do. Like, if you're a suicidal man, I do not think logical arguments are going to convince you. In my opinion.
Is there anything that will convince you?
I don't know. I don't know. Camus says absurdism. Sachs says practicality.
I won't highlight that comment.
Oh.
All right. Well, Sandy is almost joining, and Ben of Zion should be joining soon. So I guess I will announce, like I said last time, The Lonely Man of Faith by Joseph Soloveitchik is next. Hopefully everyone had ordered their books already.
Isn't
Right.
it free online in like a billion places?
Sure. Whatever it takes to get the book.
Jacob said it was free online in like a billion places. So.
Well, we will see. I like physical copies of books. I know, Emma, you are an e-reader kind of
I am
person.
an e-reader kind of person because then I can bring all of them everywhere.
That's right.
At all times.
So I was thinking, these books are usually short and relatively dense. So I'm thinking that we should probably read chapters 1 and 2. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'll let you do a full comment before we talk about it. So we'll read chapters 1 and 2. That's to page 26 in the book. And we did have a poll to see if a new day and time could be selected. Only 5 people. Oh, not the StreamYard link.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, Trey's doing it right now. We'll have to wait for Trey.
I've been stuck in the desert, okay?
This went
40
up like
days.
2 weeks ago.
On the 29th, so.
Okay, like 1 week.
He was still
ago.
in
Never
Burning
mind.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, that's a long thing. Didn't realize Burning Man was so long.
Yep.
It's like a week long, right?
Correct.
Wild.
Oh, it looks like. Did you highlight the Sandy? Sandy found it on archives.org.
Thank you, Sandy. Apparently, I did not download.
Oh my goodness. Waiting to send it for a beat up on that.
Oh,
house.
Ben of Zion is here with his kitty cat.
Ben!
Ben of Zion?
Kitty cat.
Ben of Zion.
Yeah. Yeah, the cat is very needy right
Very important.
now. So it's either pay attention now or hear him cry a little bit during the night. What did I miss?
Just most of the book club. It's okay. I'm sure you're doing more important things. Wow, and we have Sandy now.
Hello.
And I just missed the whole book club too.
All right. Well, I guess it's probably good. So, like I said, The Lonely Man of Faith. We're going to read the first 2 chapters, kind of like how we did the Halachic Man, where we're going to take it a bit slower than we did the Great Partnership. So that's about 26-ish pages. If Trey finishes his poll.
Doing it right now.
All right. Well, it was originally going to maybe be Tuesday at 9 to 10. However, it looks like with Trey's, the best day is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific to 9 p.m. Pacific. Yes, Trey.
Yes.
Does Tuesday 9 to 10 Pacific work for you or no? No. All right. Well, Jonathan's in the comments. He was a maybe for that 8 to 9 on Wednesday. Is that okay with you, Jonathan? That's your maybe time?
8 to 9 Pacific?
Sorry, Eastern.
Eastern.
Eastern. 8 to 9 Eastern.
That's 9 for me.
Well, are you in Chicago? Ben?
I'm in Austin, Chicago time, yeah.
Austin. Okay, Austin.
Okay.
So that should be 7 on Wednesday?
7? This is very confusing. Okay, 7.
7
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
6.
7 for Ben, yeah. Oh, it looks like Jonathan's okay with it. So the new day, taking the place of, I guess, the Bible study that got moved. Our new next book club will be on Wednesday, the 20th of September at 8 p.m. Eastern, reading chapters 1 and 2 of The Lonely Man of Faith.
Um,
I have one question.
Yes.
First and third is online estuary. So, how many weeks are we doing this approximately to do it slowly? I mean, which is fine. I'll just work around it.
Let's see.
8.
It's probably like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be 5 meetings, probably. So it's
Okay.
like 10 weeks. Yes,
I
Trey.
messed up on the poll.
You messed up on the poll.
Yes.
Is
I
it
didn't
because
realize
you don't?
it was tea time.
Say what?
I didn't realize it was EST time.
Oh, really? You didn't read the title,
Okay.
which is EST?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm bad at polls too. I don't think seven is probably gonna be like an hour for me if we're doing it for an hour. Sorry, let's stay in one time zone. 8.
Oh my God.
Bible
Yeah, I
study.
can
Make this clear and you guys can't understand it. Oh my God.
If you're falling into the Bible study time, it was 9. But what?
So, what I recommend, if you want a better one, have you heard of Time to Meet? When to Meet?
Time to meet. All right, that's what I'll do next time people want to
Because
change it.
it goes for your own time zone. I'm gonna put in
Your
the
own
chat.
time zone. I guess
Yeah,
math is a
that
bit hard
is
for people.
helpful.
Because 8 o'clock is 5 o'clock for you, right, Trey?
Yeah. Because I think I'm with Jonathan. I could do 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. PST. That works a little better.
All right. Ben,
What's
you were
better
the
for me
negative
so that I can
on
do that?
Wednesday at 9. Is that okay
Perfect.
with you? That'd be 8 for you on Wednesday.
8 p.m. on Wednesday. That's great.
Are you sure?
No, but
Oh my God.
What works for you?
yeah, I don't see anything. 8 p.m. It'll be 8 p.m. Dinner at 7. Sounds pretty good.
Okay, and we're still talking about that translating to 9 p.m. Eastern?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, which works better for me too than 8. Okay.
Okay. Well, we will be fully replacing the Hebrew Bible study in its old time slot, Wednesdays at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and you guys can do the rest.
Yeah. I may be a little late on
Sounds
Wednesday,
good.
but I will be there.
Okay. Well, we'll just go back to the Trey Braswell podcast experience on Wednesday. All right. So I think we should listen to Archangel's Media's comment. He says, "Can I briefly speak about, I guess, nihilism? My daughter got very sick 2 years ago, ended up in the psych hospital for 4 months, catatonic, hallucinating, etc., age 7.
Wow.
Arguments about suffering didn't help. I just remember Jesus's parable of the man who built his house on rock versus the man who built his house on sand. The rain descends, the flood beats that house, and it stood because it was founded on rock. He compares it to another house built on sand, where the rain descends and floods rise, and the house collapses, not having a foundation. The difference between the two, those who hear and do the commandments, and those who hear and do not do the commandments. I mean to say, arguments about God being just in the presence of human suffering didn't help. Theodicy arguments aren't where to turn during tragedy."
Correct. I would agree. What is the request? To talk about it?
Oh, no, he just wanted to make a comment,
Okay.
To share it.
to share it. All right, so
Now,
Ben and Sandy, the whole last 2 chapters are open to your input. And normally we force Sandy but today it's going to be Ben.
That's about it.
Let's see. Wait, you didn't discuss what did you dunk on already? I need to know.
So Ben, you weren't just sitting at dinner listening to the discussion?
Wow.
Wow.
We'll need to do
okay.
that later.
No, it's fine. We're
But-
happy to have the discussions again.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is like the 14th chapter.
Yep.
It kind of reviews, I feel like, a lot of the things that we talked about before, that we were discussing, raising criticisms about as well. These are the things that he kind of sums up on the 14th, right? Like talking about the arguments, the cosmological argument that he brings up first, or the cosmological and biological, that it seems to, and correct me if I'm wrong, seems to he just says, here are the alternatives, or here are the prevailing narratives of modernity, or I don't know how to put it, the scientific consensus, and how improbable that is. So kind of like comparing that to the religious claim, which again is not that different of an argument from what I would hear from Rabbi Gottlieb talking about probability. If you want to talk from a scientific perspective and talk about what are the chances that a nation, he talks from a Jewish perspective, what is the probability that there is a nation that claims that millions of people have witnessed on Sinai, that specific claim? What is the probability that would happen? And he shows how there is less probability for any other alternative. He goes through that argument and kind of like, that seems to be what Sachs was talking about now. I don't know what people, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion about that necessarily. I don't know if anybody else does.
Yeah, I mean, the Kusari is interesting. That's, I guess, the traditional name of that argument. But I preferred the argument of like the improbability of the survival of the Jewish people. I found that one to be a more compelling one than the Kusari, because it's just a little bit too hypothetical for me.
Fair. Yeah, that's definitely. I remember going to a rabbi's office a few years ago. Nothing having to do with religion, actually. It was only business. And I was going to this rabbi's office in Queens, and I was in the waiting room. It was kind of like The Godfather. I was in the waiting room, and people would come in, and it would be like very kind of like, I would come in and he would like welcome them, and they would be very in awe of him in a certain way. I'm missing the right word there, but then he would pull them to the back room. So that was kind of like the vibe. But on the walls in this waiting room, there's like chairs. There's a row of chairs on each side, and on the walls there's like this, these rugs or ornaments of the 12 tribes. And the 12 tribes, like the names of the tribes, and like I don't know if there was like an animal associated with them or something like that. It's like a symbol associated with them. And for some reason, and this was back when I was kind of like not really thinking about Judaism as anything not articulated, not necessarily in terms of a history or anything like or religious matter at all. But it kind of struck me there that wow, this guy and like this Judaism is a history, and religion is it's like these are the tribes that I learned about when I was a kid in school. And now there's like a rabbi in Queens, and there is these like fancy ornaments that are talking about these same tribes. And I was like struck by just like the time frame that like I have a time frame from like the biblical time frame, and then suddenly like back in Queens, it's still the same thing. It's still the same tribe, and it kind of struck me like it was a kingdom then, and then this room is kind of like feels a little bit like the king's hall as well. So that was impressive. I'm sorry if that was too long, but that was kind of like it was just impressive to me at the moment, and that still kind of is impressive to me now that I dig into things about like how with other things as well, with other traditions as well, but specifically Judaism, about how far back it goes. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Ben. All right, Sandy.
I really didn't get into these chapters.
Sandy didn't get.
I did not. Trying to give a proof of God is like, I mean, it's probably just me. Like, I mean, I'm looking through it again, and I don't know. It feels like doing everything backwards. When I'm listening to him trying to externally rationalize different reasons why you might want to, so why God, like why believe in God, why faith, why whatever. I'm backwards to that. Like, I've believed in God since I was a little kid. So when I read these things, I'm thinking, okay, so why are we talking about the hierarchy of, for looking at happiness? Why are we talking about, why are we talking about this? Because, yeah, I don't know. I probably should have thoughts on it, but it's been a busy month, and I've got a busy 3 weeks ahead. And I don't know. You guys were talking about something when it was talking about that pyramid they do, like the needs and things. So I was thinking lately, some good thing on the radio was talking about how it's kind of being looked at now by people that they are maybe got that wrong in terms of how they've prioritized things, and I have a hard time with some of the logic of this book, in a sense, which isn't because I don't like logic, but I've just come from cleaning an apartment that we didn't get anywhere near to trying to clear out, but is going to have to go to either storage or thrift. And the reasons that you label things one way or the other don't fit these categories. Which is why I think I'm saying I'm backwards, because to me, it's like everything I'm doing through all the hard stuff isn't because my happiness isn't dependent on whether I have food and clothing and stuff. It kind of is, maybe because I have never been tested on that. I do have food, I do have shelter, I do have clothing, but it isn't the reason I'm happy or not, and the same thing with the what was the entropy one? I've read it through and it's just not going in. Altruism though, for me, I just see God everywhere. I vent a lot to God and stuff. So I don't know. I listened to this and I thought it just felt disconnected a little bit from where I'm at with it. I wanted him to maybe come at this stuff earlier on, like in this way context. I didn't. It kind of. I was listening to you guys in the car when I was driving up, and I'm thinking, I felt like it fizzled. And when, like, I wrote in the thing when I was gonna type in when you said meh, Emma, I'm like, yeah, meh. It just left me kind of going, but something.
Well, you just said that you see God everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I think that's not the audience that he speaks to.
No. No, I've never really been a good fit audience for any of the.
Well, no, it's not. It's not a judgment on you at all.
No, I wasn't
it's a
judging
beautiful
myself
thing.
either. I just mean it's my entire life when I've had conversations with religious people. I'm like, why do you not? Whatever. And you guys were talking about speaking to the atheist, and my son's walked away from church. He was in the atheist club at university, and we talk about things from, more the philosophical perspective and stuff and what he's reading. And I'm like, there's nothing I've come up with yet, except for the fact that he puts up with me still believing in God. That's a thing. That's some kind of touch point. But other than that, if he didn't have me, he's got no reason to really. He's just basically angry at God, church, and the world, and so it's like, yeah, I don't think he exists. If he existed, this and this and this and this, and you guys talked about all those things. So who's the audience then? Because, like, the atheist, the letter from the scientific atheist, This is my son's bookshelf.
That's a good question. I'm curious actually to hear from other people. Who do they think Sachs is talking to?
No one. Everyone's just gonna let Ben.
Maybe I'm thinking it's like curious atheists. Like, I think ideally he wants to reach the like angry atheists and make them less angry, because I think fundamentally he's trying to make them less like angry about religion, not like make them believe in God. He just wants them basically not to be mad at God or think it's completely stupid and irrational.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
but
why
I don't
he talks
know.
about the moderate, right?
Yeah. So he's trying to moderate the extreme atheists and maybe reach some of the more moderate atheists and have them like think again, maybe strengthen their perspective. But it's kind of hard to pin down who this book is written for.
It was secretly written for Rabbi Sachs, by Rabbi Sachs, to Rabbi Sachs.
I wondered that.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of books are more written by the author for the author than
probably
anyone else.
Yeah, it seems like I think that like the prerequisites are like, I don't know, some sort of like basic liberal kind of beliefs. I feel like it's more directed towards the same audience that like Jordan Peterson, right? Whoever likes Jordan Peterson, I think in some ways that overlaps, where it seems like Sachs is kind of like talking to a lot of proto-Petersonian ideas. Not that like Peterson wasn't thinking about these for many years, but it seems like this is maybe a first attempt at something like that.
Yeah, and I think Peterson wasn't like such a thing yet.
No, but a lot of the like even I listened to some of the people venting about the whole court case thing, and I'm thinking, well, it's not like we weren't talking about being politically correct 20 years ahead of him starting to talk about it. Like this is not a new concept. It's just somebody finally, found a platform for it and kind of ran with it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, what Nathaniel is saying as well. And I think kind of what all the answers kind of like sound pretty similar. And for me, it's also, I was thinking about what some people will talk about, like I think they say like the disenchanted, or like what Peugeot would say, people the disenchanted, so the people that are interested in getting a glimpse of this enchantment, and I think this is trying to talk to people about enchantment or preparing them for that. It's almost like it's almost like preparing someone, like Emma, like what you said. I almost see it like in a fight, you almost like you give like a small punch just to open somebody up, to open their defense, and then you go for the knockout or something. So this is kind of this feels a little bit like that. It's like loosen somebody up to get their guard down, right? And then go for the hug. Maybe not a fight, but a hug. But yeah, something like that.
2011. Yeah, I was just double checking the date. Sorry. $2011. Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm killing the book cover. So when you guys were like, I'm staring at the whole page, the page here about fear and victimhood and people mocking each other, and thinking, yeah, we're kind of perfecting that right now. There's an awful lot of that going on, and I don't feel that impressed with it. But I think back over conversations with my son, his friend, the last decade, and I'm like, yeah, there's like a lot of hot under the collar things, and it's been working its way up. But what is he wanting us to do with it at this point? Like, I mean, I can talk to a ton of people, but how many times when we've been on the channel have I said, yeah, like I can't decide if I'm seriously conservative or extremely woke, because it's like the mixed messages are just incredible right now.
Yeah.
Things. And I'm like, I'm just being me. And if I'm the odd man out because I don't have an issue with God, then what's everybody else like? I don't know. I think I feel more sad at the end of this book than I expected to, because I wanted to actually say something that felt like I could grab hold of it and just say, and this is what it is and what we're talking about and everything. And I don't come away with that feeling. Am I wrong? Like, I mean.
No, I agree. I didn't come away with any sort of that feeling either. And it did kind of make me sad, but I'm not like, I can't say I'm disappointed, because it's not like I was expecting it to give me that, because the whole book has been this sort of wishy-washy back and forth, as we've talked about.
Which is odd, because I mean, on that page, he's talking about how people say get rid of the moderates so that you can have like a fair fight. And I'm thinking,
yeah, but like Sam Harris says that, and I don't think he likes Sam Harris any better
anymore. I mean, Sam Harris is like, how long's Sam Harris been talking about stuff?
Well, this was in 2012, 11, when he was at his height of popularity.
Yeah, but we're a decade and a bit past that.
Yeah, maybe this book is responding to a moment that's a little bit past, and that's also why we're not necessarily impressed with it.
I don't know that we're in a better place.
Yeah, I don't know if it's past
None.
in the Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't think we're in a better place. I think a lot of, I don't know, I've heard a lot of dissatisfaction like going around about this book as we discuss it. And I think a lot of it is because it's trying to respond to something that's only grown in the 10 years past when this book was published. And so now it just feels like a really inadequate response.
Well, of course, Trey's over here making his faces, so.
And well, actually, I was impressed with Trey how Trey was talking when I was listening in on you guys. He was like,
Really? I said something smart.
well, that didn't say you said something smart, but you were talking about sort of being the odd man, like the odd liberal out kind of thing, or whatever it was, or your viewpoints. And I thought, and you're standing there and just, you're articulating them very well. And, it needs to be said.
Thank you, Candy. Appreciate that. I guess what I was saying is, like, yeah, things are more divisive now, but I feel like Sachs is dead on the money for where we're at now. Like, the conversations around religion were terrible in the 2000s. Like, I just don't know how you would say that they've like it's gotten better. Like Paul Vanderglay having any relevance, Jonathan Peugeot having any relevance, like these people actually being taken seriously. Like, I think what at least Rabbi Sachs is trying to do is exactly what Peterson is doing. And I think the conversation's gotten better. Yeah, things are more divisive, but if we're asking, bringing up religion in the 2000s as an identity, you would, again, they were anti-theists in 2000. I don't really think we have that many anti-theists now. That's what I'll say now.
I don't know. Maybe my perspective is skewed because I'm in academia and because I was in a very Catholic bubble in the 2000s, the early 2000s.
Say is it might depend on who we were hanging out with and listening to.
I see what Trey is saying. Maybe we're in the same bubble, but it feels like some of the people around are more receptive or accommodating for the religious perspective. I mean, you can think about the Huberman clip as the last example of that. And so I think PVK has been mentioning that as well. And I think there's more people that are saying, yeah, we understand. That are saying, yeah, we understand the power of religion, but as opposed to religion doesn't make any sense. Right? So that seems to be the shift, at least at the elite, some of the elite level, which doesn't necessarily translate to what is happening on the ground. And Emma, you might kind of like attest to that. I don't hang around.
Yeah, I guess my experience feels less like religion is dumb or things like that, and more like, oh, if people find out I'm Catholic, they'll think I'm like anti-woke and want to kill them.
Yeah, but
that's a very different.
I shared a tent with you at Chino, Emma.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about
woke and kill anybody. I would not be here in the book club.
Yeah, I know. But it is the vibe you get from some people sometimes.
That's true. But like, I think I come from a unique position, being a Jehovah's Witness, where like, if I stated my religious beliefs and I say, but I don't vote, then they're totally okay with that. And I think that's the different thing. Like, the thing we argue about is politics, not our personal beliefs. So yeah.
As long as your personal beliefs don't affect me, man.
Yeah. external to church, all of my friends, I knew that place very well during that era. And then internal, it was more the go through the. When I look at my church denomination, it's probably when the Americans were saying the Canadians were all getting super woke and getting very losing our minds. Because that's kind of what I hear on the angry side of some of the conversations filtering down from then to now. In the times that he would have been writing about. And so when I look at the things I remember from around that year, there was a lot of unrest in my household around, it was the seeker sensitive time in my church where they were doing all of the studies, they're geared to people that aren't church people, everything was geared to outside of us, and getting people to come in and part of us. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, there's still a lot more solid ground in some respects to some of the things that I've been gaining listening here. Like when we did the last Soloveitchik book, I think that's one of the reasons some of it grabbed me so strong. And this one didn't, because I'm kind of like, I recognize a lot of the topics, but I'm like, it didn't. I'm not the person he's talking to. Yeah. Now, if my ex read this book, he'd probably have a lot of opinions about it, or my son, who I've tried to say, can we have conversations around some of the TLC stuff? And he's like, I am not the person to have those conversations. No, So like this book doesn't help me solve those things. But then it wasn't intended to. I don't think it's intended to. I think it's more of a, if it was me that had the issue with it, then it should be, speaking to me, but not me wondering what to do with other people.
Yeah.
I think it's taught me a little bit about that, a little bit. Not saying this is the answer, Sandy, but I think it's taught me a lot more about sitting with people. Me and my brother, we have big religious differences, and I can't really approach him with that, but I just sit with them. And I think what this book is trying to say is that, like, sitting with people, at least at the end, we're talking about the influences of psychology, affect people way more than a lot of the times debating with them.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I knew that before I started the book.
Okay, then you're smarter than me, Sandy.
No, I just have a different time frame and a different journey to get from where I was to where I am now, that I had opportunity to already figure that out. That's not intelligence, that's just opportunity. Staring at you, Ben.
He's staring at me.
Turning, yeah. What are you just thinking, or are you?
I am reading my notes. That is true.
Okay.
Well, I was just reading my note and thinking about next comment and next about us. I don't know if anybody any thoughts about any further thoughts about this.
I don't think so.
It seems like Elijah wants to say something.
Yeah.
I was trying to highlight you, Ben. I don't know how to do this. I was trying to get you up. Why?
It's okay. Father Eric always has to make himself big before he can make anyone else big too.
This is my first time running it, so. All right, you go, Ben.
Well, I was just looking at my notes, and I was because I was reading the entropy argument, and I was trying to understand what he was talking about. And I know Sandy mentioned reading through that. So I guess I'll just say what I understood from that, and I'm just curious to hear if people have if people have another idea of what it means. I just found it interesting, also because it seems to connect to what the what PVK mentioned about what Andrew Huberman was talking about. He was discussing his faith, and I saw PVK talking about that. So the argument from entropy seems like he's saying something about if people draw from their own reason, so they're in this closed system, they don't conceptualize something that's higher than them, then they're destined to create this entropy, this randomness, this chaos, and self-destruct, which is connects to kind of like what this small comment that Henry Huberman mentioned as well. So that was interesting to me because it's like this very societal. I mean, it's an individual. It's an argument that works on the individual, right? Because you can think about somebody that's just stuck in their head, and they're a closed system, and in their head they're just getting more and more wrapped in their own thoughts. And you can that argument is also a societal kind of thing. So I just find that interesting. I'm curious if that's what if I'm getting that right, and if anybody has any thoughts about that.
I'll go. I've been reading Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death, and your mention of the neurotic is something that he mentions a lot, and I highly recommend it because I think the book is an expansion of what we've been talking about here. But what he mentions is that the only way for the neurotic to pretty much satiate his mind with his knowledge of the world is the Kierkegaardian leap of faith. And the reason he says that is because you're always going to be in your head, and whenever somebody gives you something, like, just live in the moment, you're going to thinking about all your atheism and everything like that. And he says the solution to that, the cognitive, psychological solution, is the leap of faith. So I'm piggybacking on that.
Leap of faith of like what?
Thank
you. Into what?
Sorry. He means into a sort of like mythic archetype. So he mentions Kierkegaard because Kierkegaard basically says like, you need to basically walk into meaning, and it basically says, Kierkegaard says, ignore all the questions, just go to church, and all the tension you feel there, that's part of the journey. And yeah.
I'm not getting it.
Okay, I'll explain a little bit more. I think the neurotic is somebody, and I felt like this, where you analyze every single thing about yourself. You have these sort of thought loops that keep on going and going. Like if, for example, you're eating soup and you ask the question, what's the point of eating soup? Well, I'm hungry. Why do I care about me being hungry? Well, because I want to live. Why do I want to live? Right? And you keep sort of descending into these things where every single thought you have is being neurotic. And so what Ernest Becker is saying is you need to do the leap of faith, where you need to pretty much, just like Abraham and Isaac, as he's about to sacrifice them, you need to believe that things are going to be all right and think about walking and your next step rather than the thoughts in your head. So what he's saying is religion provides that for you, where you can make the leap of faith for that.
How? That's where I'm kind of going. And how does he say that happens?
He says that happens because you can appeal to mystery. Mm-hmm. And he says basically cognitively in the past, the denial of death and the denial of questions, religion uses mystery to pretty much satiate the mind.
You're not likening denial of death to that mystery, though. Is that the antithesis?
You're not. Wait, could you explain that in words
So you
that
just
aren't big?
said that he, I'm thinking he meant he, as in Huberman, said something about denial of death, and then you said something about religion provides, like the mystery, that mystery from which the leap of faith makes sense, is what I was getting out of what you said.
Sorry, I misconnected at the top. Ben was talking about the idea of being neurotic, so thinking about
Correct.
all your thoughts. And I was mentioning a book called The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker.
Oh,
which
Becker, yes.
Which talks
Right.
about the neurotic and basically saying religion allows the neurotic to be satisfied because
Yeah,
there's a mystery.
that word satisfied, what does he say about what that implies or means? I'm sorry, and this is terrible. I'm not trying to grill you on it.
No, I'm just trying to remember what he says.
Yeah.
Um,
I can tell you my why for the question if it helps. But
he says because it allows. Okay, I think basically he says he uses the difference between why we went from Freud to our now cognitive psychology. And the reason why is because Freud makes you a neurotic. Freud makes you think that you always have Oedipus complex. You always have all these complexes that are sort of in your mind. Because what Freud does is he says, you have this complex, you have this complex, you have this complex, you have this complex. And so the child of Freud, all he's doing is thinking about all these things that he has, right? But he doesn't have any solutions to figure them out. All he can think about is how he has them. So that is the neurotic person. Then he says, in modern psychology, the reason we don't do that because it's about living out those experiences. Thinking about why you have an Oedipus complex does not help you. It's better to talk about what that Oedipus complex is doing in your day-to-day life. So taking that back to what he means to religion is because you're focusing more on the day-to-day and you have the overarching plan that everything's going to be all right. And what you're focusing on is, okay, I just need to pray today. I just need to go to my job and God's got the rest. I think that's what he's trying to sort of explain.
So the way that I see Sachs talking about it is when he connects it to entropy. I think he's talking about seclusion or loneliness as something that begets entropy and more of it, right? So in terms of, if you're talking about the neurotic, the reason why going to pray or going to doing your daily life, the reason why that could help you with your neuroticism is not necessarily what you are doing, but the fact that you are interacting with other intellects or logos, or like other things that you can draw insight from. And I think when you say mystery, that's the same. When you say mystery, that's the same thing. Like you have to have something beyond your own reason that you can draw insight from. And that thing is, depending on who's going to talk about it, it's either a bug or a feature that it is ambiguous, right? It's ambiguous because that ambiguity actually allows you for interpretation. So that's kind of where the interpretation, I think, connects here, because you can, right? Just like a verse, the verse can be many things that you can interpret in a way that you can draw insight from it. So it has a certain flexibility, even though it's this that's the play of like the written and the oral. That's kind of like this thing that it's very hard to do. Yeah.
I'm a little confused on what you meant by the written and the oral.
There is, yeah. So sorry. I mean. Well, what I discussed, what I mentioned in terms of the written and the oral is just I was talking specifically in terms of like how you would see like rabbinical interpretation of a very particular verse and how that can, and how in various contexts you can draw different insights from a particular verse, and it can help you in very different aspects of life. Right. So one verse will help you decide the laws of marriage, and one verse would help you decide whether you should loan something to somebody or not. It's like different, right? But it's like, but you're drawing from this fountain of, but you have the leap of faith here is that you believe that this particular verse allows for this, has this, it's a fountain that has this kind of water in it that you can draw from. So you treat it in a way that is, on the surface, it's just a few words that were written in a book by a few people somewhere in time, right? But the way that you treat it is you're hypothesizing, you're assuming that it is way more than that, and what you can draw from it can lead you in ways that can make your life, other people's lives better.
Yeah, gotcha, and that makes sense. And I guess the reason you need the leap of faith is because you could go crazy, sort of looking at the original sources and thinking about what are the original sources, and then just sort of going back in between all the either the written text or the vocal text and trying to see how they match up. And you could be lost in that spiral when the important thing is, how should I live my life, and thinking about the now rather than being neurotic about the exchange.
I think that might be like a different neurotic problem.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, when I was listening to your description of the neurotic and stuff, Trey, I was thinking about some of the things, like if you get stuck in the type of thought loop that you were describing, it's almost like gaslighting yourself. You're basically going around and around and around things that you know isn't going to ease you, but it's like you just keep firing these thoughts back at yourself. And you, so when you were describing that, I thought, okay, now I understand why the entropy, because that's a place of really profound entropy, because you just kind of, you're in that center place where you just can't you can't break out of the loop. And then something that gives you an opportunity for a leap of faith, you can get out of it, and yeah, there was something else you said that made me think of different ways we dissociate. So if you aren't actually going through the active movement of gaslighting yourself, you're doing the opposite sometimes of simply just withdrawing into yourself or away from the whatever. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's usually something I wouldn't have thought of in that context, but there's a definite, I could hear that in what you're describing, the neuroticism there. Yeah. Hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yeah. Trying to picture leap of faith, what some of the... So if I was saying to people, like, my son and I were talking about the difficulty sometimes of doing things for yourself that you can do much more easily for other people. we were going through stuff where you have to do that horrible. Are you going to use it? Is it useful? When's the last time you needed it? Why do you have it? All of the kind of questions that you go through, and it's something we're sort of saying. There's an awful lot of nostalgia in some of the stuff, and I know in my family, to allow nostalgia as a valid reason for anything would be one of our leaps of faith. To actually be able to say, I can actually articulate why this or that, and label, not just going through that thought loop, but saying, this is actually important to me because, or this really doesn't matter because, as you're sorting stuff, which is different than the theological and theoretical stuff he's talking about. But even on the practical level, I'm kind of like, so there's a huge chasm of opportunity for entropy in some of our day-to-day stuff. But at the same time, that what you guys were saying about the one step, and then another step, and then another step and stuff, it makes sense in that place too. And it's a hard place to have, like, when we talk about this book being kind of directed, it's the kind of conversations we're having, like in this little corner. I'm like, yeah, but we don't seem to have familiarity with that process, at least in some of the people I'm having private conversations with. And I don't know if that's something you guys see too, but the conversations can be really difficult for me, not for me to have, but to have with, because there's that. I don't know if that fits the entropy question though. But I see, like, when I look at some of the church conversations that we're having around things that make everybody either, that people are begging for middle ground because they're going, the ends don't know what to do. Where's the middle? Why is the middle not carrying its weight? What is it doing? It's just sitting there doing nothing. The people sort of sitting in the middle of problems to solve. And I'm like, no, I don't think they're doing nothing, but there's not a form of entropy. Like if there's arguments or things that you're trying to work through and you're not looking like you're participating because you're just basically sitting there in the middle, not taking up either side of the fight, is that a form of entropy? I'm going back to reading the book for a minute.
Well, I'm pretty sure entropy is, I guess, the movement from order to disorder. So
I always thought of it as being simply becoming immobilized, allowing the disorder to take over around you because you're just. That's why I asked about entropy, because I'm like, I don't think I really have the concept of.
Yeah, there's a term that's close to entropy.
So I might just be thinking
of that. Frozen, like that. I need the first English speakers here to help out a little bit. There's something that means frozenness, not entropy, but atrophy.
I might be thinking of
atrophied or something like that.
Do you mean petrified?
Petrified? No.
I think he means
atrophy is also like the
form of
like decaying of something.
Wasting away. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for me, I sometimes, when I hear entropy, I kind of confuse that with that a little bit. So I don't know if that's what, Sandy, what you're talking about. But I feel disorder can definitely lead to being frozen, or how did you put it? Like just being stuck, because even if I'm thinking about it in terms of like in the brain, I was talking about this with if somebody has a stroke or something like that, in some ways you can say that the entropy level goes up and there's more disorder, and that could lead to different effects. One effect is that they would try to talk, and they would use words that don't fit the meaning of what they're trying to convey. So they're using different words, or it could also result in just being stuck. Like they're thinking about what they want to say, but they can't say it. Because it's firing, but it can't find what it wants, right? It's the paradox of choice, and one effect of that is that you're just stuck, you're frozen. So I think that there will be one effect of entropy.
Yeah, and that's a good example. One of these things says both entropy and atrophy are the same, an act of returning to its former being, defining it as a breakdown, oxidation, or decay. It's also true as their antonyms will take over. A cycle of yin and yang, endless cycle of waxing and waning, consuming each other yet coexisting. And I'm like, ooh, that's weird. And yeah, because I really have to think about how he says that religion can basically, it has the improbable power to renew habits of the heart and drive civil society, defeating entropy and civilizational decline. And I'm like, I mean, I can sit here and say, I believe in God. I see him all the time. He is everywhere in my life. But if religion itself as a thing has the same effect in my life as seeing God, knowing God, like engaging with God, I'm not sure they're the same thing in my head. Religion and God.
I think that Vivek said in his I think this was in his series when he says when he was trying to describe the sacred, or maybe it's one of his talks, he was talking about how he can read Plato, and every time he reads it, he discovers something new. It's never ending. It's never the same thing. That's sacred for him, and I think that is what Sachs is saying can defeat entropy, where you can draw continuous insights from without yourself, from outside of yourself, because in yourself is the problem. The given is that there is an issue, right? There's increased atrophy or entropy. So given that, then something, you need advice, you need something from somebody else, from somewhere else that's not affected by the same issue.
So do you perceive, if you dive into reading the scripture,
sorry,
if you dive right into reading the scripture in a moment, not that you don't do it regularly, but on a time when there is a moment of crisis or some deep question or something, and you find yourself just diving right into, reading and looking at the words of God there. Do you still label that as religion?
It's just I don't know. I mean, if it's hard for me to, I don't necessarily understand the premise of the question, but yeah.
So to me, when people use the word religion, I think of various churches, various mosques, synagogues, places where there is a pattern to it, something. Whereas faith And your day-to-day with God is not necessarily a thing of the building, the structure. It's more of a thing of the home environment, or your, engagement between you and your community. And to me, religion places all of that inside a context that people perceive as inside the church doors, or, whereas maybe in Judaism it's different. But so to me, it's kind of that, religion is that Sunday go to church thing, whereas faith is at any given moment you could, experience faith. So when he says religion has the improbable power to renew habits of the heart that drive civil society, defeating entropy and civilizational decline, my brain still goes back to, places of my childhood where I'm going to show up at church every Sunday, and you are going to be a good, whatever. You're going to be a good volunteer. You're going to be good at your civic responsibility. You're going to be the good leader everybody wants to follow. You're going to be the whatever, because that's what's saying is that this is where you learn the habits of that benefit civilization, or whatever he's saying. And in my life experience, it's been so what are the reasons you go and sit on the floor beside your ex-husband's bed and try to get him to engage you and talk to you? And why do you go and help clean out his stuff? It's not because I show up at church every Sunday and they teach me good habits. It's more to do with, what do I find in God's word that really drives me? What are those places that open up the mystery for me? And on the one hand, going to somewhere and following the prescribed order of readings and the prescribed, prescribed liturgy provides one aspect and one element of my life. Whereas for me, the leap of faith happens more in the chaos of whatever else comes at me. And I don't know if that's just me. Because you guys all look like you've got your lives way better, more together.
It's 2D screen.
What's that?
We're on a screen. It's very we're gonna give a very
gotcha.
Very rough impression.
I know. I feel like there's a lot of important stuff in here. It just kind of
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe I get it this way. What is the point of his leap of faith? To make a leap of faith, is that simply because, like you guys were talking when I joined, you guys were talking about life and death stuff, and Trey was talking about suicide, and I'm like, I don't remember reading about that, but whatever. And I'm like, is the leap of faith just simply that place where, hey, Hezzy, where this is like I saw him where I read where he said it a couple of times, but I'm like, leap of faith should have like an outcome that's specific. Is it just the belief? No?
Okay.
I'm picturing the basketball player, like going for that,
That's not
a leap of faith.
No. I think that my favorite writer is Kierkegaard out of everybody, because I think that's kind of the point. Like,
and I have not read Kierkegaard.
Me either.
Is a great book, and I think it's my favorite commentary on Abraham and Isaac. How do I explain the leap of faith? I have a really okay. You know, I'll say it. There's a quote that Jordan Peterson says where he says, "Suicide can always be done tomorrow," and that's really a dark quote. But I think what it means to say is, I'm going to walk forward. I don't know how life is going to work, but I'm gonna hope for the best.
Mhm.
Kierkegaard mentions Abraham and Isaac as the grandest leap of faith, because what Abraham is told to do is something that's literally like God has told him not to do. Like if you look throughout the Bible, the one thing that it's against is child sacrifice, and now Abraham is directed to do this thing, and it doesn't make sense to him. And what Kierkegaard basically tries to run through is the different scenarios Abraham could have done. Like he could have gone home, he could have sacrificed another animal, right? But the truest leap of faith
Mm,
is walking into that tension and
yeah,
doing it bravely. So yeah.
so that I get. That I totally understand.
Finally I've explained something well that doesn't get everyone confused. So I'm glad about that.
It just took you 2 hours, but you did it, Trey.
Yeah. And 23 years.
There you go. Things are looking up.
Things are looking up. We up. I'm telling you. Okay?
You survived Burning Man. You explained yourself clearly. Like, dang.
No. Before who knows it, I'll be married.
Exactly. You'll be taking over the world.
I know. Wow. Don't get
The
too
whole
envious.
world will be JW, just as you wish, right, Trey?
Oh gosh. No.
All right. Anyone else have any other comments, questions, concerns?
We should do summaries of what we thought about the whole book, right?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's first, Trey.
I thought that like I think that I'm trying to slip into Rabbi Sachs' shoes, and I think that he had a really difficult sort of balance he needed to do. And I think what he was trying to do was he wasn't trying to evangelize, but he was also trying to at least make a good defense for faith. I think a lot of what I see in the book is a part of it is the bus sign, but I think that part of it is he's like, I think he worries a little bit about how people will treat religious people. And I think he thinks that the new atheists, especially with a lot of comments by Sam Harris,
Mm,
could be detrimental to them. And I think that sometimes he meanders, but I think that I don't think it's an argument, but I think he's trying to make a love letter to religion. And he's really just trying to say, like, this is why I love this. Like, this is why I go up every day. And it's like, and just like, it's like, I could explain, for example, I could explain, like, let's say I have a girlfriend, and I could explain why I am analytically aligned to my girlfriend. Or I could say, I love her because she does this. I love her because she does this. And I think Rabbi Sachs is trying to speak from the heart and say, like, look, I love my wife because of this. Please just understand I love my wife, and I'm not going to become a horrible person because of loving my wife. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
How are we deciding who goes next?
It's going to be Sandy next.
I'm still thinking about what. I actually really did like parts of it. Like, I mean, I like the fact that I'm opening back at 15 going, yeah, I do. I like the fact that he's talking about faith. I like the fact that he's talking about it being a search for meaning. There was some good stuff in here. I did like it. But I didn't hold it together as well in this book myself. Like, I mean, Trey can sit down and give you a whole story about it, and I'm just going, I did not hold myself together as well on this book. And I don't really know why, because I don't know why I didn't.
How about this? What would have made it better? More cohesion, and like what parts didn't connect?
Honestly, having read him and listened to him, I think it's probably he's got that such a gentle personality that it's just screaming at me off the pages, and I almost want him to have a hissy fit about something just so it gets my attention.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's kind of basically where I'm at with why I was struggling. It's very placid, and my life has not been placid. It's been very chaotic, so I'm kind of like, placid demands 4 times the attention.
It's too British.
He's very English. Very. Yes. Now we're going to hear from all the Brits in our...
Do any Brits even watch this YouTube channel? Like, I mean, there's Teo and stuff like that, but I don't think people watch the book club.
I don't think most people watch the book club either.
That's right. It's just the good 10 of us that do.
That's fine.
Yeah. I think I'd give the book 2 out of 5 stars. The good parts, they're there occasionally, but I think they've been said better by other people. And the bad parts are a little bit boring. So, good luck. Try again, Rabbi Sachs.
Come on,
it's just my opinion, Trey. You can't disagree with my opinion.
No, but like, don't you think that, like, okay. I'm going to at least want to defend Rabbi Sachs a little bit. Don't you think that he's somebody who at least was the precursor for Peterson, as well as one of the first people I can think of who connected science and religion to different hemispheres of the brain?
I think, like I said before, that I think that Sachs, in some ways, is a precursor to Peterson. And I don't know. It seems like he's hopping on the McGilchrist kind of bandwagon. So I don't know.
But McGilchrist wasn't even around.
No, he specifically wrote this in response to Master and his Emissary. He says.
Literally quotes.
He literally quotes it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Damn.
Okay.
Damn, Trey. Really read this book, huh?
When did it come out?
I think he mentions it in like the introduction or something.
October 2012. Mama's. Wasn't it 08?
Because I looked that up specifically because I was curious about that when we first started reading this.
On the very first
The
page.
Master and His Emissary is 2009, and this book is 2012.
Okay. Yeah. I must be looking at a different version. Okay. Fair. Fine.
All right. That's a win for Elijah and an L for Trey. So,
but we're not keeping score at Jewish Book Club.
These two guys are.
All right. Ben, you can go next.
I think this is the most prophetic, most book I've ever read. No, I'm kidding. I agree with what you're saying. This is Parv or Palve, depending on if you're the spice of Jewish you are, but middle of the road. It's neither meat nor dairy, but I like it for that. I like it not necessarily for that fact or despite that fact. I just liked the fact that it was. I, that it kind of gave a taste of different things. And that could be because a lot of those things I don't necessarily have a deep acquaintance with, like maybe some other people have. So I'm okay with having the leap of faith of like I could just kind of understanding it, like the surface and how on the surface, and understanding how he's using that to build an argument and what the argument is, and then just in this book specifically, just like okay, kind of understanding the premise and then taking that with me to have conversations with other people or other works, and then kind of like either breaking it down or building upon it. So I don't have a score for the book, but I would say that I agree with the what people are saying about it. But for me, it was a positive experience.
Yes, that leaves me.
The latest and the greatest.
I don't know. I thought it was okay. There were some parts that I thought were interesting and some parts that I thought were not that great. I feel like it was a little bit frustrating at times. It seemed kind of to be trying to combine several different things into one, and that made it hard to follow sometimes, I felt. But I think a lot, if not all, and I'm only hedging because I don't specifically remember every single thing I thought it was trying to do right now. I think they were good things to try to do. And I think, like, I don't know, it's a good concept that deserves to be a book.
It's a tweet. Should be a tweet.
So I thought it was pretty good, but I also did not know what to expect. And therefore was kind of confused during reading it sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that I feel like there was the expectations were different for some of us. Like we all had different expectations of the book, and then that affected our perception of it and like what we thought about it.
Yeah, I think so.
But the dialogue is always fun.
All right.
It is.
Any other comments on the book?
Well, I know Jonathan hated it so much he couldn't finish it. So
Yes, Jonathan hated it even more than I did, so couldn't even finish it. And I think Jacob also said that he didn't finish it, but he has some other excuse, like he was busy or something. So.
yeah, something like that.
I guess a
Honestly,
job or something
I'm in
unbelievable.
school and reading other.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we see how often he streams, like, school, job, anyway. Well, that closes the final chapter of The Great Partnership, Science, Religion, and the Search for Meaning by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. Next time, we will be reading The Lonely Man of Faith. It will be on a Wednesday the 20th at 9 Eastern. Even though it seems like people can't do time conversions, I trust that when you see it on the YouTube thing, you'll know that's when to join.
The YouTube
Thanks.
thing does the time conversion for you when you schedule
Yep.
it.
as a
Thanks, guys.
host, you're supposed to make everything as idiot-proof as possible. So I think that's a problem with you.
I'm sorry, Trey, that I had high expectations for you.